They actually say you shouldn't say jokes about marriage. The women don't think they're funny. The men don't think they're jokes. So this couple, these two girls go out for lunch, talking women stuff. The friend says, you know, I'm having such a hard time. I've gone out with so many people. I've dated many men, and I see they're all interested in my father's money, in the dowry. No one interested in me. Do you know how much I would give to find someone who's thinking about me? The friend says, how much? So this couple gets married, come to the rabbi, we're having such a hard time. We fight everything. We don't agree on anything. We got married 7 weeks ago, and we haven't stopped fighting. The rabbi looks at the wife and says, what do you say? 6 weeks. So the rabbi sees it, doesn't know what to do with them. He says, I think the problem is you're too overstressed. I suggest you run every day 10 miles, and after a week, you give me a call. The rabbi gets a call after a week. He goes, how's it going? Rabbi, you saved my life. You saved our marriage. He goes, so quickly. Of course. I'm 70 miles away from home. They actually say that love is a sweet dream. Marriage, the alarm clock. So you have the couple, 25 years. They go to whenever they're shopping in the mall, they're holding hands. So when a friend says, I can't imagine, you guys are unbelievable. Such love. Whenever I see you guys in the mall, you're holding hands. The husband says, if I let go, she shops. Who's a successful man? They say a successful man is someone who earns more than his wife spends. Who's a successful woman? Find such a man. Okay, as you know, tonight's topic is about marriage. For the other 7 jokes or openers, we'll find them in the middle of the way. Why is marriage such an important topic? And why am I talking about it besides the fact that I wrote a book? So the answer is because marriage is much more than 2 people getting along. The importance of a marriage impacts the entire community. How is that? The success of our people, and especially out of Israel, is the strength of the community. The community is made up of families. The strong family nucleus is the base of any community. What is the essence of a community, of a family? When you have the relationship between the parents and the children, when the children are getting the right messages, and that always happens, usually, when you have a good relationship. So if you have parents which are having a complicated relationship, it usually impacts our children. What's the environment they're living in? Are they living in a hostile environment? Are they getting more insecurities? Are their self-esteem being hurt? As we know, unfortunately, what people live through. So to me, the idea of marriage or helping people with their marriages is much more than a person having a better life, which is also definitely very important, but the importance of the family, which impacts the community and the entire Jewish people. So that's why I find this topic of great importance. As you know, we live in a society where a very large percent of people get divorced. The divorce statistics, as you can see on the chart, in the States it's about over 50%. You have countries that have it 70%, 80%. But today I'm not going to talk about the people that get divorced. I can't fix that. I'm worried about the people that stay married. How many people are married and are not happy? So one thing is if they're already divorced. What about if they're still married? And how many people are not divorced but are not married? And what do I mean by that? 2 people can live together many years and choose not to divorce, but it doesn't mean that they have a strong bond. The real marriage that everyone deserves and everyone should have. Thank God we come from very strong genes. If you'll meet my grandmother, she lived till 120, she's 93, still giving orders. My great-grandmother lived till 106. I tell my wife, you're going to have to live with me a long time. So I thought I knew everything about women that a man can imagine. I mean, you can't imagine what 7 sisters are, trust me, unless you've had them. So when I got married, I was convinced that it'll be an easy ride. What else can I learn that I don't know yet? And I quickly learned that marriage is a whole different ballgame. It's not about having sisters. You can have as many sisters as you want. But you're having a different relationship with your siblings, and with your spouse. So, in my process, and as you noticed, as you heard, I'm a rabbi about 22 years in Panama. In Panama, the people come to the rabbi before they go to the therapist. It's a very traditional community. They don't believe in therapists. So they go to the rabbi. So I was married 4 months, and someone came to me for advice, and he was married 20 years. What am I supposed to tell him? I'm 24. My wife is 19, believe it or not. Took her straight out of the crib. And I'm going to give him advice. So I realized very quickly that if I don't learn something about marriage, I'm going to have a divorced community. So that's when I started doing my studies. So today we're going to start with a simple question, a biblical question. King Solomon says 2 verses very opposite. The first one he says, as you read it on the board, Matzah isha, matzah tov. In Proverbs he says, if you found a wife, you got married, that's great. Then it says, in the next verse, in Hebrew, Motzeh ani et ha'isha mar mivavet. I found that marriage is even worse than death. So the question is, what is he saying? Is marriage good? Is it not good? Of course, King Solomon, you know how many wives he had. He could have everything. He had 300 wives, 700 concubines. I'm sure some were good, some weren't. But he left this verse in the Bible, in part of Tanakh, as a message. So my question is, let's decide. Is it good or is it bad? And what's he teaching us? It's another interesting question. The first verse of marriage in the Torah, God tells man, or God says, it's not good that man is alone. I will create him a helper against him. Let's see that in the actual verse. The verse says, "Vayomer Hashem Elokim lo tov heyot ha'adam levado e'aseh lo ezer kenegdo." The English translation for that, it is not good that man be alone. I will make him a helper against him. And this is not the wrong translation. That is the literal translation. What does it mean to have a helper against him? Isn't a helper for him, to assist him? And what does it mean that God says it's not good that man is alone? I know many men, they're happy to be alone. What is this statement? That it's not good for man to be alone? A woman came to my office this week. She's married 50 years. She said, Rabbi, you never met me. We never spoke about my marriage. She moved to Panama from Bolivia about 10 years ago. But how did you write a whole book just about me? And the answer to the question is coming up right now. Everyone in life looks for one thing. What is it? Very good. Okay, we all agree. At least most people. Some people want to be sad. I don't know, masochists. So most of us look to be happy. We all agree? Good. To be happy, I believe all we need is one thing. What is that? A wife. A wife, wow. What do you say? Love. Love. What else? Any other opinions? Savlanut, patience. Okay. We'll take one more answer. To be happy, you need one thing, guaranteed. And it is? Faith helps. The answer psychologically is a healthy self-esteem. Okay? If you're happy with yourself, then you will be happy. What brings you self-esteem might be your marriage, your faith, love, and anything else. But the thing that happens before marriage is called self-esteem. Our self-esteem is based on different elements. I'm not going to go into that detail. Everyone, what's important for them brings them their self-esteem. But here is where the critical point comes. I believe that most men's self-esteem is derived from 3 things, what I call the 3 P's. If you're a man in this audience, or you're a woman, you can help me. What do all men seek for daily for their self-esteem connected with the letter P's? Something in English first. Anybody? A partner? Power. Okay, I heard the first P. The second P men look for is prestige, which is connected to pride. And before we go to the third one, no man said he looks for money. You guys are really a group of holy Jews. And the answer is men don't look for money. Believe it or not. Money brings you power, pride, or the third P, pleasure. Very good. Okay. So men, look for the 3 P's, okay? Prestige, power, and pleasure, okay? If you don't agree with this, that's fine. You don't have to stay for the rest of this speech, okay? If you agree with this, you're a healthy man, okay? We might say we're a little bit egocentric, possible. But this is the definition. Whatever you're going to look in your life, unless you're a very holy Jew, a very spiritual person, not connected to the material world, it will usually go into these 3 categories. So, if a man has a successful business, it can give him prestige, power, and pleasure. If he buys a nice new car, it's going to give him prestige, power, and pleasure. If he has a very nice wife, it can give him prestige, power, and pleasure. But they can be divided into 3 categories. So if you're a professor in the university, what is that? That's prestige. Might not be power. If you're a very strong person and you're a bully, that might be power, not prestige. And obviously pleasure includes everything that men like, even eating hamburgers, okay? Not to talk about other things that men like. So, this is the makeup of the DNA of a man. Do we agree? You don't have to be 100%, even 90% I'm happy with, okay? Good. Women, I say their self-esteem depends on the 3 A's. Can you help me? Affirmation, acceptance. It's all cousins of one word I'm going to tell you. Sorry? Affection. Which affection means attention, affirmation, acceptance, admiration, appreciation. All the A's which connect to the word affection. Okay? Not yet. Do we all agree? In other words, the word is in English actually love. But for A, it worked like better affection, okay? So, affection is a very important component of a woman's life. What else do women seek for their self-esteem every day? We said attention, appreciation is part of affection, okay? Give me another A that every woman in this room looks for every day. Appearance. Very good, okay. If you're not sure, look in your closet tonight and count how many shoes your wife has. Or how many garments. Or if you want, you can go to the mall and just count how many stores sell items to men and how many stores sell items to women. Okay? So, appearance is a very important part of a woman's self-esteem. Good. The 3rd A sense of... Very good. Accomplishment. Okay? To feel... I have something. It could be my job, it could be my family, it could be my good marriage, it could be my extended family, my volunteer work, whatever it is. I'm not just a person that needs affection or appearance. I have some type of purpose, and that's part of my sense of accomplishment. Okay. If we agree on this, I think we'll be in for a very interesting conversation. But before that, this is not just my opinion. I believe it's based on the Torah. Can anyone help me with a verse in the Torah which tells us that men are connected to power and women are connected to appearance? It's a biblical verse. The answer is, the Torah says, Lo yilbash gever simlat isha, v'lo yakli gever alisha. The Torah literally says, a man should not wear women's clothes, and a woman should not wear men's clothes or men's items. And the Mishnah explains, women's clothes doesn't mean literally don't walk with a skirt, okay? It means a man should not be overly concerned about his appearance. And a woman should not be over concerned about her power, and therefore she should not go with a sword or with armor. So the Torah actually defines this concept of appearance versus power in a very specific verse. Another small example. The Torah says a man is obligated to give his wife one of the 3 things that you signed in the ketubah, if you remember. Marital relations, which includes affection. An obligation for the husband towards the wife, and not vice versa, which we can talk about a little bit later. So, we have the P's versus the A's. And therefore, you can all understand why After a man comes home after work, he has dinner, what do men like to do after dinner? Watch TV. Very good, thank you. What do women like to do after dinner? Talk. Wow, and we didn't rehearse this, okay? Can anyone explain to me why? Again, it doesn't have to be everyone agree or everyone have to have the same but this is usually what I hear from most men and most women. Why do men watch TV and women want to talk?
Wait a minute.
Sorry?
That's not what my wife does.
Good. I apologize.
Men watch TV because women want to talk.
Hey, I don't want to make a bigger problem in your relationship, okay? So if you have anything to say that includes your spouse, that's not so nice, don't say it here, okay? Fine. Why do men want to watch TV? Because? Guys, I gave you the answer. It's one of the P's. It's the pleasure. Very good. Men seek pleasure. Steven Spielberg and company is very exciting. Okay, people are being blown up, or James Bond, whatever it is, whatever you look at, okay? Or sports. Okay, men seek pleasure. Why do women want to talk? It's affection. Now, here's what usually happens. When you still thought you would be able to talk to your husband after dinner, okay? What usually happens is, okay, let's talk. And the husband says, talk? We just did that. So she says, when? And he goes, by dinner. She goes, you don't remember? He says to his wife, you asked me how was my day, and I said, okay. Then I asked you, how was your day? Let me remember what you said. You started from the morning, during the mid-morning, everything that went right and everything went wrong. I mean, it took about 12 minutes. That's not talking. So the wife tells her husband, you don't understand. I want to spend time with you. What does the husband say? Come watch TV. And what does she say? No. I want to talk. And he says, you see, let's listen to what you're saying. You're going in circles. You said you wanted to talk. I explained to you that we spoke. You said you want to spend time there. I said, let's go watch TV. And you go, you want to talk. You see? And you tell us that we're the problem, right? So what's going on over here? Why can't they communicate? Because he is connected to the P's. And a woman says, I want to talk. What she's really saying, I want to feel connected with you. Talk is just a superficial word. What she's really saying is, I want to connect. And if you were at work all day, or I was at work all day, I would think the thing that you most want to do when you come home is speak to your wife, right? Why do I have to compete with the television? So she doesn't understand, why is she less important than the television? So the woman tells her husband, I wish that was one of the channels. At least once in a while you'd look at me. And the husband says, that's not a bad idea. Once in a while I can change you. So, when a woman says she wants to talk, that's her way of connecting. But since the men, their way of connecting is not necessarily through talking. They're not understanding this conversation. So let's go to the next question. Everyone knows how important it is for a woman to hear the three most important words of her life. I love you, right? Do you all think that a man needs to hear the same words of affection as often? If you say yes, you can say it. You say no. What do you think?
Yes.
Yes. Anyone say no? No. Okay. At least the rabbi's on my side. Okay. So let me give you a couple of stories. So first of all, this guy gets married, tells his wife the night of his wedding, listen, honey, I love you with my heart and soul and everything dear to me. And unless that changes, I don't plan on repeating those words, I love you. Do you think that would work?
No.
Now, is that logical for a man? Think for a second before you answer. Is that logic? So I'll tell you. I had a meeting with a couple. They were in their courtship. They weren't married. And I'm giving them this spiel. And I tell them this idea. And the girl's looking at the guy. I say, what's going on over here? Well, he refuses to say, I love you. I say, if you don't love her, you're going to get married to her? Because of course I love her. But this is not lip service. Whenever she wants to hear it, I have to say it. I say it when I feel it. Exactly, very good. But if you only say I love you the moments that you feel passionate about that word, you're going to get divorced. A woman needs to hear it much more frequent than a man needs to hear it. There are exceptions to every rule. I'm talking about people under the age of 40, sorry, okay? Now, so, why is that? Because a woman is connected to the 3 A's, okay? Affection is part of her self-esteem, while a man is connected to the P's. And therefore, as long as he has his prestige, his power, and his pleasure, he's usually good. One third example. Imagine a couple has a fight. Can happen to anyone. And this time, finally, the wife realized it was her fault. Doesn't usually happen then. But this time, she said, it's my fault. She calls the rabbi, goes, fix it up. What does she do? She sends her husband a bouquet of flowers. Do you think that can ever happen in history? What would happen if the husband got a bouquet of flowers from his wife? Why wasting money on flowers? Let's go for dinner. A good steak. That's something. If a woman received a bouquet of flowers from her husband after they had a fallout, would that be something meaningful? Of course it's meaningful. Can anyone explain to me why men don't see roses that they received as something very meaningful, and a woman who gets a dozen roses that can change her whole perspective? Like it happened. A guy comes to my office, he had a fallout with his wife. I told him, listen here, it's easy. This was your fault for sure. Send her flowers and a card, it'll all be fine. He goes, Rabbi, you can't imagine how terrible it was. It's not going to work. I said, listen, trust me, try it. You're in the most trouble you can ever get. You have nothing to lose now. So he sends him the flowers. A couple weeks later, I meet him. He goes, how's it going? He goes, Rabbi, you can't believe it. I can believe it. I sent the flowers. Everything was perfect. They're married 10 years since then, and they have 3 more kids. So it must be working. Why? I don't know. I don't have the answer, guys. But I just know that flowers mean affection for a woman. And once you touch their heart, they're working, they're fine. But for a man, in his peas, the flowers don't actually work. So, right now I think we can agree, although there are exceptions, and I'm not saying that men don't need affection, and I'm not saying that women don't like some power, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in general, these are the things that make men and women tick. If you agree with this, now you'll understand why, I believe, every marriage is going to fail unless people understand this concept. Every marriage will have trouble if you don't understand the P's and the A's. Why is that? Why does every marriage need to fail if you don't understand the P's and the A's? And the answer is very simple. How much does a man need from his wife to fill his self-esteem? Prestige? No. Power? No. Pleasure? Yes. How much is that? It has a certain limited time, a week. How much does a wife need to feel from her husband affection? How many minutes a day? And how many minutes? Did anyone say 24 hours? Does a woman have to feel loved all the time? Obviously. That's what a woman is. She has to feel that she's her husband's priority. Doesn't mean she has to hear him telling him every day, 24 hours, I love you, I love you, I love you. Don't do that either. But a woman needs to feel that she's loved all the time. No woman wants to feel she's competing with the client, or she's competing with basketball, or she's competing with the television, or she's competing with any other mishigas. A woman wants to feel that she's her husband's priority. The women in this room, do you agree with me or not? Yes. Good, thank you. I was getting worried. No feedback. So, if a woman needs to feel loved 24 hours a day, and a husband is connected to his P's, while she's waiting for the affection, where is he? Where is he? So, don't you think that's an automatic problem? Don't you think automatically that marriage is going to suffer? And it's going to suffer because the husband is not doing anything intentionally or anything with bad feelings. He's just living his life. And living our life as men, seeking the 3 P's for our happiness and self-esteem, we don't even realize why our spouses are feeling upset. It's like teaching the color green to a colorblind person. How do you figure it out? And the biggest problem we have is, since we're all humans, men and women, we project or we think that our spouse sees the world from our perspective or our prism. And that's the problem. So you have the story about the rabbi, very cold winter, knocks on the door of a very wealthy philanthropist. The butler opens the door. He says, "Rabbi, please come in." He goes, "No, I'm rushing. I have to run. Ask Moshe to come to the door." Moshe comes in his short sleeves. He says, "Rabbi, please come in." No, 1 second. Go, "Tell me, no problem, you're rushing." "Yeah, you know it's a very cold winter." "Yeah, Rabbi, I know it's a cold winter." "Do you know how many poor people we have in the city?" "No, Rabbi, how many poor people have we?" "We have about hundreds of poor people. There's not enough wood to heat up their homes." Because, "Rabbi, that's a very good point, and by this time the man's already shivering." It goes by 3 minutes, the conversation, and finally the rabbi says, "I need a check from you." He goes, "Please, Rabbi, come in." You go inside, the rabbi, he runs, he takes, how much do you want? 10,000 ruble, it's yours. He goes, "Rabbi, I don't understand one thing. If you realize you wanted a check, why did you stand by the door? Why didn't you come in at the beginning?" "Because I wanted you to feel how cold it is outside." So if can't feel the cold of the people that don't have wood, it's very hard to open up our check or to sign that check. So as long as we're in our worlds of the P's and the A's, and we don't understand or connect to the other need, obviously it's so much more difficult. And therefore, what we usually have is this type of scenario, where you have men being perfect men. They go to work, they don't do anything that they shouldn't, they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't go to casinos, they're loyal to their family, but when he comes home, from after supper, he goes to live in his world. And he doesn't understand why his spouse is kvetching. Why is she upset? Why is she picking fights on small things? But really what's happening is his wife knows she has a great husband, but sometimes she feels a little lonely. She feels that she's not loved enough. She doesn't feel she gets enough attention. And no wife can tell her husband, "No, I don't think you love me enough." What is a man going to tell his wife after he works so hard to protect his family, and his wife says, "I don't think you love me enough"? What's he going to say? "No, come on, stop it. You can't be serious." And how it's going to make her feel? Worse. So she doesn't even say that. And she's living in this world and saying to herself, why can't he get it? So a woman in France, when I gave a talk a couple of months ago, came over to me and says, "Rabbi, I'm married 16 years, and this is exactly what I'm trying to tell my husband. He doesn't get it. What should I do?" See? Buy the book. Because we have a hard time to understand something that's not part of our makeup. So if we agree on everything I said, or most of what I said, who has to make a greater effort for the relationship to work? The husband or the wife?
The wife.
That's it. Who has to make by who is it more natural? Who has to make a greater effort?
The husband.
If a woman is connected to affection by nature, she gives affection because she needs affection. If a man is connected to his P's by nature, he's not in the world of affection, it's going to be much harder for him. First of all, he doesn't understand it. He doesn't believe it. Now he has to do it also. So therefore, for marriage to work really requires for the husbands to understand more of the wife's needs. And this is what I honestly believe. If a husband knows how to treat his wife and give her the A's that she needs, the wife will be an excellent wife. But if a wife is an excellent wife, it does not guarantee that the husband will be an excellent husband. And not because he doesn't want, because it's just not part of our DNA. For those of you that know a little bit of the Bible, I have a biblical proof. If you remember when you went into the chuppah, you signed the contract. You know what the contract says? The contract says that the man will provide his wife with food, clothing, and shelter, and marital relations. It says the wife will do for her husband nothing. And you guys all signed that. I believe that's why the contract is in Aramaic. Imagine someone actually read it and understood that. That would be a crazy thing to do. How is it possible that in the 5 books of Moses, It says only what men should do for their wives. Even a verse that says, when there was wartime, the man did not have to go to war the first year of marriage. He should be home and bring joy to his wife. The Torah doesn't say how to bring her joy, but stay home and give her joy. It doesn't say the wife should give her husband joy. What's going on? This chauvinistic religion that we have only tells men what they have to do and doesn't tell the wives what they have to do. I think the answer is more than obvious. The answer is, we have to teach husbands how to be better husbands. We don't have to teach wives how to be good wives. That is natural. Just to give you another biblical proof. The Rebbe actually mentions this.
Did my wife hire you?
I'm with you.
The Rebbe asked this question. It says there's a commandment to have children. Biblically, the commandment is for the husband. The man has the obligation. The woman does not have the obligation to have children. And the Rebbe asks a simple question. Since we know, at least until the year 2000, it was impossible for men to have children without wives. Today, we don't know. But for thousands of years since the Bible was written, it was impossible to have a kid without a wife. How does it make sense that the Torah would command the man and not the wife? And the answer is as obvious as you can imagine. We don't need to teach a woman to have a child. For a woman to have a child is part of her life, her aspiration, her self-esteem. But for a man, we have to convince him. He says to himself, 9 months she's going to be pregnant, she's going to be kvetching, she's nauseous, oy vey. And then next she has a child, and she has to nurse him, I have to compete with the child, then I have to send him to college. Forget about it. So we have to tell the men sometimes that this is an obligation, you got to do it. We don't have to tell the wives. The mother, it's a natural thing. So therefore, once we understand this concept, we'll understand a basic tip, very, very important for relationships. The first thing is important for the women to understand when your husband does something that you feel he's ignoring you, he's not taking you into consideration, he didn't respond to your WhatsApp message, he didn't come exactly on time as the time you want him to come. It's not against you. He loves you. He's just sometimes so overwhelmed by his peas that he just doesn't do it. Don't take it so personal. It's not personal, okay? And the men need to understand, when your wife starts doing things that makes you feel uncomfortable, she's doubting you, she's making you feel that you're not being a good husband, remember, don't respond to the word she says. She's not looking for an answer. She's just saying, I'm feeling today a little down. I need a little more attention. You ignored me in certain ways. So instead of saying, no, I was there, I did it, it's your fault, that's a mistake. That's just messes it all up. All she's giving you the cue that you did something unintentionally that made her feel less important, and just fix it. Go over and say, honey, you're 100% right, and give her a hug. And then you've saved so many hours of conflict for no reason. Because that's what it's all about. It's as simple as it is. So they say, when a wife tells her husband, I'll be ready in 5 minutes, it's the exact same thing as when the husband tells his wife, I'll be home in 5 minutes. Bottom line. The bottom line is, since by nature, as we have discussed till now, we have different interests, what do? How do we fix it? So there's one simple answer I give, and I think actually God illuminated me. Wow, and I'm not a prophet yet. Every day we do something together. What do we do together? Usually, unless you're on a new diet, we eat together. Okay, today you have so many types of diets, you can't even eat together. He's on Atkins and she's on Weight Watchers. You can't mix the carbs. So God puts us I ask myself, why do we have to eat? Imagine God tomorrow say, we don't have to eat anymore. All the women in this room would be very happy. We don't have to worry about the diets anymore. We have to go exercise. But the reason we have to eat is because the fact that we have to come to the table together brings all our family together, usually in the week, or for sure on Shabbat, because everyone needs to eat. That's how it is. So we need to eat. So we sit at least a couple of minutes 15 minutes, a half hour together, and we share some time. If we didn't have to eat, our relationship would be much worse. So I say to myself, this is God's cue. God says, find things you like to do separately, independently, and do them together. So a couple that does exercise together is a great thing. Because you're anyways doing it, you anyways like it, you don't have to force your husband to go there, and you can do it and talk together. Whether it's to take a walk or whatever it is. Find an activity you like to do, each one, and do them together. Whether it's play tennis or play ping pong or board games or study, anything could be. That's the simple key to make a better marriage. And by the way, it's amazing. You don't need to invest 24 hours a day. You can invest 15 minutes a day or plus 2 hours a week to change your whole relationship. There's a selling book by John Gottman. Anyone heard of him? Okay. He's considered the guru of marriage counseling or therapists. He wrote a book called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. I believe that's the name. After I wrote my book, I have a relative who's a psychologist. He recommended I read this book and another book which is written by Deborah Tannen, You Just Don't Understand. Okay? And over there basically speaks scientifically about the difference between men and women, which I thought was maybe just based on religion, but scientific proofs that basically say that we're very different. Although society is trying to say we're the same and it's just nature, that's not today's topic. If you don't trust me, read the bestseller by Deborah Tannen, plenty of scientific proofs. But coming back to John Gottman's book, he says, 4 hours will change your relationship. He has a book he wrote about, he made what he calls the marriage lab. He brought in over 1,000 couples into a room, into a home, and they spent a week there, being taped, all their conversations, to be able to understand why the relationships work, why it doesn't work. And he says, this is his conclusion, if a couple will spend 15 minutes a day speaking, talking to each other after dinner, and a couple of minutes of words of affection, spend one night a week, they go out for dinner or whatever they're going to do for 2 hours, that is the key to change the whole relationship. Now you think about it, 4 hours, such a difficult relationship, we're fighting so much, so many problems. And the answer is very simple. Because once the spouse or the wife feels that, yes, I'm part of your life, I'm your priority, you want to spend time with me, that connection fills that need of affection, and automatically the whole relationship changes. So the first piece of advice is find something you like to do independently, do it together. A. B. God put us into marriage for a reason. Everything, we believe that there's a purpose. God, just like He put us here and we have certain obligations to make the world a better place, we have to make ourselves better. That's the basic teachings of Judaism. How can a human being, how can we become better people? If we're alone, if we're selfish. So the basic teachings of Judaism is teach people to be selfless and not selfish. And the first place you're going to learn about that is in marriage. In marriage, the moment you move into the same house and you live together as a married couple, you start realizing, I have to sacrifice, I have to change. It's not always the way I want it. Sometimes it's going to be a little different. Once we're able to learn that, we become less selfish people. And this is ultimately the message of Judaism. As you remember, we read in the Torah portion, God gave the Torah on which mountain? Why did He choose that mountain? It was the smallest. It was a humble mountain. What is the greatest trait of Moshe Rabbeinu? He was humble. And everything in Judaism is a way to teach us humility. If you want to be humble, if you have a good marriage, it's because you're being humble. If you don't have a good marriage, it's because we're not being humble. Say the story about the couple comes to the priest, and the priest says, how would you like your ceremony? The traditional or the modern way? He says, well, what's the difference? The traditional way is everyone would light a candle and they would blow out their own candle. The candle represents their independence. Blowing out the candle would mean that they're putting away their independence to merge. The modern way is everyone lights their candle and they leave it lit. No one wants to give off their independence. So the husband thinks for a second and says, or the groom, I know. Let's light the candles and she can blow out hers. So this is the concept. We want other people to blow out their candle for us. As we know, the famous, very famous story of the fisherman who catches a fish, big salmon. He says, wow, my master loves salmon. So the salmon is very happy. They love me. They're going to take care of me. They protect me, right? They bring the fish all the way into the home, and the head chef says, our master loves salmon. He goes, wow, he loves it. They love me so much, they're going to take care of me. And then they pick up the hammer or whatever. They're about to clobber the salmon. And the salmon says, if you love me, why are you going to kill me? So when we tell someone, I love you, what are we saying? Are we saying, I actually love you, and therefore I'm going to dedicate myself to you? Or because I love you, I want to see what you're going to do for me? When we got married, we thought that we're marrying the person that we're going to sacrifice for, or we said, this is the person that's going to give me something. We all get married for conditional reasons. No one marries someone they don't love. You marry the person that you think is going to make you happy. That's conditional. But for the relationship to work, you need to switch that from conditional to unconditional. And that's the trick. And that's part of what the eternal message of Judaism. Learning how to become more humble, how to give to someone else. And this is actually the message when we come back to the first question I asked. It says, why did it say it's bad for man to be alone? Right? Let's make him a helper against him. So if you think your spouse is against you, she's helping you. If your spouse tells you everything, whatever you want, will always do it your way, she's making you more selfish, more egocentric. That's not what God wanted. So if your spouse seems like sometimes have a different perspective, and sometimes you think it's against you, that actually teaches us humility, teaches us how to be better people. So God says, it's not good for man to be alone. What does it mean it's not good? For his good part, for his holy part. It's not good for us to be alone. If we didn't get married, we'd be selfish our entire life. The fact that we have to get married teaches us more selflessness. And that's what King Solomon said. There's two ways to see relationships. The first verse we mentioned. Matzah isha matzah tov. If you got married, it's a great thing. But if you said motze ani, literally means if you found yourself, ani is your ego. If you're looking for your ego, then relationships are very bad. Relationships aren't good for your ego. Marriage is great to make you a better person. And this is the second part. Find things you can do together is easier. But sometimes we have to make a sacrifice. But remember, that is the eternal objective. And if you want to have a very good marriage, is when we take the peas, the original peas, and we change them. What are our new set of peas? We have to be willing to please our spouse. Okay? We have to remember that part of pleasing our spouse is our purpose. The purpose why God brought us here was to make us better people. And a good relationship means I become a better person. And the final P, when we have peace, P for peace, at our home, this is actually what generates peace in the entire world. And like the Rebbe says, which by the way, today was the passing of the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe's wife, 28 years ago, and they had a very, very unique relationship. After the Rebbe had his heart attacks, he had 4 heart attacks in 1978, massive heart attacks, which he survived, obviously. The doctors knew he had to change his schedule. He had a very tiring schedule. So the doctor said, okay, what is not negotiable? Tell me what on your schedule is not negotiable, and then we'll start negotiating. He said, the half hour I drink tea with my wife every day, that's non-negotiable. That's the only thing. Imagine you have a great tzaddik. The Rebbe spent hours and hours and hours studying, teaching, sending letters, responding to the whole entire world. He slept, they said, maybe 2 hours a day. And he said a half hour, the only thing that was not negotiable is the time he spends with his spouse, talking. That's pretty amazing. And we know many stories of when the Rebbetzin hurt her foot. She told the secretary, make sure the Rebbe should not find out that I was in pain. And the secretary obviously told the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, don't tell her that I know she's in pain. And everyone thinking about the other. That's the essence of marriage. When each spouse is concerned to make their spouse happy. And instead of focusing on am I getting what I need, I focus, are you getting what you need? And you're focusing on, again, not what you want, but what I'm getting. You have less effort and much more results. Because as long as we're focusing on what I want, or what I need, or what I expect, we're obviously both schlepping in different directions. And if we're focused on each other, we're obviously going to have a much, much greater relationship. So, I want to wish everyone, wish the rabbi and the Rabbis and the entire community, many blessings. This requires effort, but it's well worth it. Thank God I'm married over 22 years, and I know this has been my secret, and this is a secret that can help anyone. So, thank you very much. Well, again, in the paper, I just want to mention the Rambam, Maimonides. He says the secret of marriage. Love her more than you love yourself, or as much as you love yourself. Respect him like a king. And if you just think about the words, love her as much as you love yourself, affection. And treat him like a king. He needs to pump up his ego. You need to pump up his peas. Tell him he's great, he's wonderful, he's so special. That's what you give her affection, attention, and she gives you your peas, and everyone's going to be happy.